All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. It is just about 12 o'clock on Monday, October 30th. You are here for the information session, how to apply webinar for the Grants for Organizations off-year application. I'm Emily Sollenberger. I'm a program director here at the State Arts Council and joined by my co-program director, Laura Weiss. The two of us are going to take you through today's information session. And we will get to the content and all those good questions after we get through some grounding slides. So here's just a reference shot of Google Meet, which is the platform we're using. Just be mindful if you're on a desktop, most of your controls are probably towards the bottom center of your screen. Some things to note: towards that bottom left center is your microphone and your video. We ask that you please stay on mute during today's session, unless, of course, you've got a question. And you can decide if you want to be on video or not. That's completely up to you. There's some fun emotion icon things that if you'd like to use those, you're welcome to do that. There's closed captioning if you do that as well. It's the box with the 2 C's in the middle. There's a raise hand function. So if you do have a question, you could use that along with some other features if you click those 3 dots. Additionally, I'd like to note the bottom right of your screen. Again, if you're on a desktop, you'll see there's a chat box. It's that kind of rectangular bubble with lines in it. Just note that we will be using that today. Laura's probably going to drop in some links. We'll pull any kind of questions or comments from that chat box if you can't vocalize your questions. Thanks, Laura. Note that it is public, so there's no private feature to message somebody individually. So whatever's in there, everybody can see. All right, and as we do for all of our public sessions for the State Arts Council, we're going to go ahead with some further grounding slides. I'm going to read these aloud for accessibility purposes. The first one is our land acknowledgement statement, and we acknowledge the lands and waters now known as Maryland are the home of its first peoples: the Accohonic Indian Tribe, Assateague Peoples Tribe, Cedarville Band of Piscataway Indians, Chaptico Band of Indians, Lenape Tribe, Nanticoke Tribe, Nasu-Wawash Band of Indians, Piscataway Conoy Tribe, Piscataway Indian Nation, Pocomoke Indian Nation, Susquehannock Indians, Yakagani River Band of Shawnee, and tribes in the Chesapeake watershed who have seemingly vanished since the coming of colonialism. We acknowledge that this land is now home to other tribal peoples living here in diaspora. We acknowledge the forced removal of many from the lands and waterways that nurtured them as kin. We acknowledge the degradation that continues to be wrought on the land and waters in pursuit of resources. We acknowledge the right of the land and waterways to heal so that they can continue to provide food and medicine for all. We acknowledge that it is our collective obligation to pursue policies and practices that respect the land and waters so that our reciprocal relationship with them can be fully restored. The next is our equity and justice statement, and that's that the arts celebrate our state's diversity, connect our shared humanity, and transform individuals and communities. The Maryland State Arts Council and its supporting collaborators are committed to advancing and modeling equity, diversity, accessibility, and inclusion in all aspects of our organizations and across communities of our state. MSAC and its grantees are committed to embracing equity and non-discrimination, regardless of race, religious creed, color, age, gender expression, sexual orientation, class, language, and/or ability. The vision of the State Arts Council plays an essential role in ensuring every person has access to the transformative power of the arts. And we do this through our mission, which advances the arts in our state by providing leadership that champions creative expression, diverse programming, equitable access, lifelong learning, and the arts is a celebrated contributor to the quality of life for all the people of Maryland. We also have some goals that are connected to our strategic plan. And the State Arts Council, we're at the end of this particular strategic plan and in the process of developing a brand new strategic plan. So you will probably hear a little bit more about that in the upcoming weeks. But for right now, we're still focused on these 5 goals that are bolded here. Goal 1 is increase participation. Goal 2 is to provide intentional support. Goal 3 is to build capacity. Goal 4 is to leverage connections. And Goal 5 is to bolster Maryland arts. And we also like to remind folks and to kind of keep these creative meetings actions in the back of your head as we move through today's session. And that's to celebrate being in the space with other creative people, engage with everyone's presence as a gift, acknowledge that together we know a lot, enter the conversation with curiosity and inquiry, share your idea and trust that it will be heard, use I statements, focus your language on the task at hand, hold one another accountable with care, apply yes and I hear your idea and I'm going to add to it, and balance speaking and listening. And moving along here, these are kind of some other things just to keep in mind, even after you leave today's space, that the State Arts Council has a lot of professional development opportunities, including information sessions about our programs, just like this. Every other Tuesday, you will find us 9 a.m. on Tuesday mornings for Coffee with the Council. You're welcome to join those. Sometimes they have specific topics, sometimes they're open discussions, but a great way to come together in the sector and connect with State Arts Council staff. We also have been hosting regional office hours. We should correct that bullet point on this slide. So we're not doing regional art summits, we're having regional office hours across the state. We are, where are we going for November? Southern Maryland, right? No.
I think that we're in Montgomery County.
Yes. Montgomery County in November. So I believe there's something on Eventbrite. Yeah, this is an old slide. Sorry about that. So you can sign up if you're in the Montgomery County area or surrounding area if you'd like to come and see the staff in person. I believe it's the 14th of November, if I'm remembering correctly. Additionally, there are other things that happen throughout the year, including the Maryland Arts Summit, which is hosted by Maryland Citizens for the Arts in June. And you'll also hear some information about Maryland Arts Day in February. So there's lots going on, and you can find it all on our Eventbrite page where you signed up for this session. Another thing we like to remind folks of are the different ways you can get involved with the State Arts Council. In particular, we rely on the public and a diverse array of our constituents from across the state to give input in a variety of our programs and opportunities and things that we're evaluating throughout the year. One of those being a panelist opportunity. So that's a great way to kind of get to know the ins and outs of a particular program, to evaluate different applications depending on that particular program. It could be project-based, it could be general operations. There's also editor opportunities, jurors. So if you find your way to the ways to get involved page, you'll see those particular opportunities that are available. One we want to note, because this is the GFO session, we do have a call for panelists for this particular on-year. So those that are in visual and media, music, and literary will be reviewed in an on-year this year. So if that's something you're interested in, we highly recommend that you consider applying to be a panelist to review applications for this upcoming year's group of on-year applications. And I'll note you'll get plenty of training and support from Laura and myself, and there's also compensation. So the GFO program is probably the program that offers the most compensation for your review. Okay, so with all of that in mind, we can get to the actual agenda of why we're here today. So we are going to review the Grants for Organization program as a whole. We're going to go through the timeline and next steps, what to expect, a review of the off-year application, and some notes around the financial table, the funding formula, and the Smart Simple grants portal, and then we'll leave some time for Q&A at the end. So we do ask that if you can hold your questions until the end of the session, you might get your answers along the way. So, but we'll make sure we can uplift any of those questions. And again, this is for the off-year application only today. We did have an information session around the on-year application a couple of weeks ago, and that recording is already on our website. If you go to the GFO program page on msac.org. All right, and I'm going to hand it over to Laura to go through our overview.
Great. Thank you so much, Emily, and welcome everyone. Thanks so much for joining us during your lunchtime on this Monday. So just a quick refresher about the Grants for Organizations program, or GFO as we call it. This is the general operating program. This is our largest program that we offer through the Maryland State Arts Council. And as it says here, it provides operating support that strengthens and sustains Maryland's arts infrastructure. In the current year, FY24, we awarded nearly $18 million through this program to 291 organizations across the state. And we are anticipating crossing that 300 mark this year. So we're very excited about that. You're going to hear this multiple times throughout the program today, but the off-year application, which is the one that you all would be a part of, that is going to be due on Friday, December the 15th, 2023 at 11:59 p.m. The off-year application is always due on December 15th, every single year, no matter the day of the week that it falls. This year it happens to be on a Friday. It is important to note that while we will accept applications up until 11:59 p.m., Emily and I definitely will not be here at 11:59 p.m. So just keep that in mind as you're preparing your application. We always recommend, submitting on the earlier side, just in case you hit any kind of technical glitch or you need a last-minute assistance with something. Generally speaking, Emily and I are usually around from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. So just keep that in mind as you plan towards that December 15th deadline. You're likely familiar with this already, but just to review the on-year versus off-year and what that means. So GFO runs in a 3-year cycle by artistic discipline. During the on-year part of your cycle, the organization would complete what we call the full application process. And that's the much longer application. It's reviewed by a panel. There's extension assignments involved in it. It's overall it's a full application process. It's a longer process. In the in-between years, you complete the off-year application, which is a much shorter process overall. So this year, looking at the FY25 cycle, the on-year, just for reference, would be those organizations who fall into the music category, the literary arts, and the visual/media arts. Off-year, which would be, all of you presumably, would be either music C, dance, multidiscipline A, theater, service, folk and traditional, or multidiscipline B. And you can see here the cycles that are coming up, so you can kind of plan forward and how that works just in the rotation. So again, your off year, you're going to be in that shorter application process until you come into the on year again by cycle. Looking at the GFO timeline, just to kind of orient yourself as to what to plan for. So we're here at the end of October, believe it or not. So those applications, they've been open for several weeks now in Smart Simple, so you can access them at this point. Again, the deadline for the off-year application is going to be December 15th at 11:59 p.m. From there, after that point, roughly from January through April, we're reviewing all of those applications. So that's myself and Emily. We review all of the off-year applications and the associated financials. Your application does not go through a panel review in the off-year process. Just a reminder, January 31st is when your FY24 interim report will be due. And following the receipt and the approval of that interim report is when the second disbursement of your FY24 award would be processed. As we move along, moving into the spring and the early part of the summer in May and June, we make recommendations for funding to the council by staff. And those grant amounts are determined by both the formula and by our budget for FY25. And we'll talk more about the formula in a couple of slides. And once we officially move into FY25, so after July 1st of 2024, those notifications for your FY25 grants are sent out via Smart Simple. Again, a standing date that happens every single year is August 15th. That's when your final report would be due for your FY24 funding. That's important to note because the receipt and the approval of your FY24 final report is what triggers the first disbursement of your FY25 grant payment. So they all kind of work together, you know, as we move things along. So that's just another important date to know about. Again, final reports for GFO are always due on August 15th of every year. Interim reports are always due on January 31st. And throughout that entire timeline, we're here to help however we can. If you have questions, need any kind of support with any of the applications or reports, want to talk through anything, we're here to help. We're happy to have meetings, phone calls, whatever works for you. This is just a quick heads up. This is really more relevant for those who are completing an on-year application, which has a November 15th deadline. But just for your awareness, Emily and I, next week, we're heading to Puerto Rico for the Grant Makers in the Arts Conference. So while we're there, we're going to have very limited access to email. So just know that in your planning. Next week, November 6th, 7th, and 8th, we're going to be participating in that conference, so we won't have immediate access to our email. All right, so to walk through the off-year application real quick, just a couple of things. Most of the pieces right here you already probably have in your Smart Simple profile. That's going to include your organizational contact information, your UEI. If you have not entered that in yet, you do need to enter in that information for your organization. That's been around now since 2022, I believe. So you should have that information. And if you don't, you need to reach out to sam.gov to get that information straightened out. The application itself is just a brief narrative, financials, and a couple of attachments. All of this, there are Word document versions of the application available on our website. So sometimes organizations prefer to work externally of Smart Simple to kind of work through all of their pieces and then put it into Smart Simple. You can absolutely do that. There's a Word document on the website along with an Excel spreadsheet version of the financial template. Just be sure to enter it all into Smart Simple. We have to accept it through Smart Simple. So make sure at the very end that you're transferring everything. So the application itself, again, not reviewed by panelists, just reviewed by staff. The off-year application, it does not involve any of the artistic activity visits. It doesn't have in-depth conversations. It's just the brief application itself. And we're going to share it with you right here. And it is significantly streamlined this year. Much shorter than it even was previously, and it was pretty short before. So get ready, you're going to be very excited. So the first question is, and they're all yes or no questions. The first question is, has your mission, vision, goals, or values significantly changed since your last application? Yes or no? If yes, you're going to have a narrative box that pops up and you're asked to then please explain those changes to your mission, vision, goals, or values. In your response, you might please address what the changes are, the reasoning behind the changes, and how those changes have impacted the organization and its programming. If nothing significant has changed, you just answer no, and there's no narrative question. You'll just skip to the next question. I know, it's exciting. The next question then is, has your organization's programming significantly changed since your last application? Significant changes would include adding or removing a program from the activities chart included in your last on-year application. Again, yes or no question. If yes, then a narrative box is going to pop up and you're going to explain the changes of the organization's programming. In your response, please address what the changes are, the reasoning behind the changes, and how those changes have impacted the organization. And if there are no significant changes, no narrative. You'll just go on to the next question. And that next question is, have there been any additional challenges or updates, such as changes in operations, staff, leadership, etc., since your last application that you feel MSAC should know at this time? Again, yes or no question. If yes, you would be asked to explain the challenges and or updates, the steps the organization has taken to address those challenges and or updates, and any additional details to why these activities occurred. And if the answer is no, nothing further needed there. And believe it or not, that's the entire application in terms of the narratives. You'll see that there's no activity chart involved. We're just really looking for those updates. So hopefully that's some happy news. I'm seeing some little, emojis. Hopefully that helps to alleviate some stress, some time. We really just wanted to get to what we need to know when it comes to that application. So that's going to be it for the application. I'm going to hand it over to Emily to talk about our favorite topic, financials.
Thanks, Laura. Yeah, we're really excited about the narrative changes as well. And again, it's really to be reflective of what we're hearing from you all as you're going through the process, along with Laura and myself, and what we feel is needed to know from you all, and not having to repeat things year after year, and really want to get down to the things that are most important for you all. However, there is another part to this application that remains pretty consistent, and that's the financials. And again, that helps each year we refresh those financials to get your latest fiscal year, so we can determine your funding, because that allowable income number year over year is what goes into your funding formula. So one of the first attachments and things to think about with your financials is that we're looking for the your last completed, most recently completed fiscal year financial statement. So if you are on a traditional fiscal year, that would be FY23. If you're a calendar year, typically we would be looking for calendar year 2022. With your financial statements, we have that kind of cutoff point. If your total allowable income is under $600,000, a financial statement that is more of an internal statement that's signed by a professional accountant, an organization, fiscal officer, somebody who is authorized to sign off on your financials, is what we'd be looking for. So this could be a profit and loss statement, or another type of statement that shows your actuals, your income and expenses for that last completed fiscal year, and that it's verified by somebody in your organization. Now, if you're an organization that has allowable income over $600,000, we're looking to for you to submit audited financials. So that means it would be a review from an independent external audit company prepared by a CPA firm. So those audited financial statements should be submitted with your application as well. So we realize that as we are ending kind of the calendar year, that you might be in the middle of your audit review process as an organization. So as we did last year, we will ask that if you need to provide your audit after the December 15th deadline, to let us know in advance, and you would have up until March 1st, 2024 to submit that finalized audited financial statements. In the meantime, as you're approaching that December 15th deadline and you're completing your financial table, we will ask that you still use those numbers for your last completed fiscal year, even if your audit is not complete. That way we will have, a sense of what your numbers will look like. So if you're using an internal profit and loss statement, feel free to get as close as you can in your financial table. And that way we have less edits to make later on once you get us that audit. So the financial table itself, again, that's the table that's built into the application. So you're using that financial statement or your audit as the baseline. So when you're completing the table, you're going to be entering your income and expenses for your organization or arts program for that most recently completed year. And we're looking for the table to match your financial statement that you're attaching to the application. So within the table, we're also asking that you provide clear notes and instructions so we can connect those lines in the table to the lines and amounts within your attached financial statement. So when you go through the table itself, you'll see that there's different places to add those notes and to clarify things. And that would be extremely helpful for Laura and I as we move through the review of all of your financials as well. If you're an arts program, that would be our organizations that are non-arts organizations as your full mission, but you have a significant arts program. Your table should also reflect only your arts program financials. So we're not looking for, if you're representing a university gallery, for example, we're not looking for the full university's income and expenses. We're looking for your gallery's income and expenses. So again, just those arts-based income and expense lines for your financial table. And you'll also be asked to provide a separate financial statement that connects to those income and expenses as well. Again, that's just for our arts programs that are non-arts as a full organization. Everybody else, we're looking for your full organizations. As resources, we have a template that's been on the website. You can also request it from Laura or myself, but it's an Excel sheet that is a guide for the financial table in the application process. So it's a fillable thing that you can download and you can use as a guide internally before you transfer that information to the table itself. We're not asking that you use that template as a financial statement. We're looking for that to come from your organization. The template is just to be used as a guide to complete the table. Laura and I also recorded a financial table tutorial, which is also on the website. I believe it's like 15 minutes. So it's a short video, but it basically takes you the ins and outs of the table and financial statement. So there's more detail, if you go to that particular recording. Okay, and then the other attachments we'd be looking for is your IRS letter of determination, which I'm assuming you all probably have somewhere. And we just ask that you reattach that along with the signed W-9 form. And that should be a recent signature, within the past year or so. So it should be updated, and just cross-check your address on there and EIN number and all those things. And it should be signed and dated. Okay, so that's really the full application, those short narrative questions, and then the financial table. The other thing that to keep in mind is that Laura and I are here to help through the process. As she mentioned earlier, we can give you feedback if you'd like, review a portion of the application. If you're questioning, your financial table and your financial attachment, we're happy to take a look in advance. But just allow for about 15 business days to get that feedback. Again, this is a shorter application. It's not being scored by a panel. It is being looked at by Laura and myself. So I would assume there's probably not a lot of questions that need to be or requests for feedback in advance, but we're happy to walk through any of those questions that you have. And because the deadline is December 15th, we ask that if you're looking for some feedback, to let us know by the 1st of December, and that would just help us with accommodating all the different requests. And just reach out to us directly. Okay, I'm going to move forward into the funding formula. So once we get all those financial statements and we determine, and verify your allowable income, we move through the process of getting all of the funding formulas set up. So there's 3 variables in the funding formula. It's the total allowable income, which again, we pull from your table and verify with your financial statement each year. The panel score, which is determined through your application. And since you all are going through an off year, your panel score from your last completed on-year application carries forward during these off-year review periods. And then we multiply that by our cap allocation, which is determined by the State Arts Council's GFO budget allocation each year and your organization tier. And that gets us to the FY25 grant amount. So an example at the bottom of your screen is if you have $500,000 in allowable income, you get a 90% panel score, and say your cap allocation percentage is 7%, your grant award would look like $31,500. And to go a little bit further, I'm assuming many of you have heard of our shift into the equitable funding formula, which was new this past year, current year, I should say, FY24 funding. This was determined a couple years ago when we went through an editing process for the formula, and we got some communications out and put it into place this current year. So the equitable funding formula is impacting your cap allocation percentage, so that third variable in the funding formula. So we determined that instead of one cap allocation to be used for every single organization, we are breaking down each organization by budget size. So there's 5 different tiers, as you'll see on your screen, with some different goals. So tier 1 is our organizations that are between $50,000 and $500,000 in allowable income. Tier 2 is 500 to 1.5 million. Tier 3 is 1.5 million to 5 million. Tier 4 is 5 to 10 million. And tier 5 is our 10 million plus organizations. And you'll see with tiers 1 and 2, the goal is to get to a higher cap allocation percentage. So for tier 1, we're looking to get towards 15%. Tier 2, 10%. Tier 3, we're looking to stay in an average amount, so a goal of 6%. And our tiers 4 and 5 are looking to transition to a smaller percentage. And these transitions are happening over a 5-year period of time. So these are kind of some end goals based on the information that we know to date of our funding allocations and where we think we're going to be going. So again, our smaller organizations are looking to get to a higher cap allocation percentage and our larger organizations to a lower. So we're in FY25, we're moving into year 2 of 5 during this transition. So as we're going through this, there's a couple of other things that we're keeping in mind that our editors also recommended. And that is to cap any one organization to not get over a certain amount. So this past year was 1.4 million. Year 2 in FY25, we're looking at a cap of $1.3 million. So no one organization can get more than that amount. Additionally, as I mentioned on the other slide, there's some priorities to increase tier 1 at a faster rate during the 5-year transition to tier 2, increase steadily over 5 years. Tier 3 remains stable, and tiers 4 and 5 that do not decrease at a rate of 1.5% or more. So we're keeping those in mind as we do all this great big math problem once we get all of the numbers set. So what that looks like in practice, so for FY24 cap allocations, you'll see on your screen kind of that breakdown of where we landed with our goals and keeping all of those, the priorities in mind. So tier 1, we were at 8.3705, whereas tier 2, 7.7, tier 3, 6.7, tier 4, 6.1, tier 5, 5.75. Okay. And that's a lot of information. So Laura and I can certainly, chat with you further if you've got any questions or concerns about the funding formula, your financials, because that's a big piece of this program. And I'm just going to keep moving, Laura, through the Smart Simple, and then we'll get to some questions here. So many of you have already been on Smart Simple. You've already completed applications in the past because you're in an off year. So you're going to continue in this platform in Smart Simple. So as a reminder, you'll need to submit your off-year application through Smart Simple. You're already registered to be in this place, and just a reminder to make sure you've got that unique entity identifier, or that UEI number. Well, it's a series of numbers and letters, finalized and in your profile. As a reminder, you'll log in using your email and password associated with your account. And when you get to your Smart Simple dashboard, you'll find the off year application within your funding opportunities. And if it hasn't been updated already, I think we're losing that word funding, and it might just say opportunities now. Either way, you're looking for the opportunities. And once you open that up, you'll see the listing of the different grant opportunities that are available. So you'll be looking for the Grants for Organization off-year application and clicking that blue Apply Now button right next to that. Just noting that the full application, that on your application, is in there, and you shouldn't see the intent to apply. But if you do, just note that you're looking for the off-year application, that shorter application. And once you open up that application, we recommend that you hit that Save Draft button right away. That's going to give you full access to the application, including the financial table. It's also going to get that application set up. So once you start entering information and saving it, you can always come back to your draft under the In Progress section of your Smart Simple dashboard. But just make sure before you even get started, click that Save Draft button. And also remember that this system does not auto-save. So clicking that Save Draft button as you're entering information is always a good rule of thumb. Okay, and then that final reminder here that the deadline is the 15th of December by 11:59. And again, just note, Laura and I work generally 8 to 4. So just to kind of plan ahead as you're moving forward. Okay, and then here's our emails if you don't have them already. And we can move into some Q&A. Okay, anything in the chat we'd like to start with?
I addressed a couple of questions in the chat, but just to pull them out in case other people have the same question. There was the question of, is the cap allocation based on the allowable income from the last completed fiscal year at December 15th, the deadline for the application. So yeah, so we're looking at the financials that are submitted with the application. So in this instance, it's going to be either FY23 or calendar year 22. So if you're on a calendar year, we would not be looking at calendar year 23 because it's not a complete year by early to mid-December. So just to clarify that. And there was another question. Oh, it was just to clarify the difference in if you needed an extension for your audit. Yeah, so we really do want the audit from the most recently completed year. So if you're in that process, you know, in the late fall leading up until the application, it really would be best to work towards that extension of March 1st. So if your audit is in progress right now, you know, you're working through that, just reach out to your program director, either me or Emily, so we can make note of that. And we'll make sure that you're all set so we can get the financials at a later time.
Great. And if anybody else has any questions, feel free to drop in the chat, or you can use the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen.
I'll just share that this recording will be on our website. It usually takes us just a couple of days to process the recording and get it uploaded to YouTube and put the link on the website. So if you need to refer to this recording or share it with anybody in your organization, probably by the end of the week or so, we should have everything up on the website. It'll be in that same page. I dropped the link earlier where there's the financial tutorial and the other templates. It'll all be in that same section for you.
Great, thanks for that. And I see, Haley, your comment question here. The theater off-year apps would not be for FY21. This is, or FY25. This is for FY25 funding, this year's off-year application. So we're looking ahead to the upcoming year, and the awards will be made for FY25. And I see the other question here. Does this grant exclude applicants from being eligible for other MSAC grant opportunities? Potentially, yes. There are some that if you do receive GFO funding, you are eligible for many other programs like the touring grant or professional development. But something like the creativity grant, you would not be eligible for. So I would just look, if you're looking at other grant opportunities through the State Arts Council, be in touch with Laura or myself. And there's grant guidelines around, and there's an eligibility section in each of those grant guidelines. So if you're questioning anything there, that would be a good first stop. But you can also reach out to us and we'd be happy to help. Okay. Any other questions or comments? I will just plug again that if you are interested in the panelist opportunity to also consider that, there's details on our website, and you can reach out if you are questioning what that experience is all about. So we're happy to chat with you if you're interested in that.
And I'll just jump in with one clarifying remark that I just want to make sure is clear, because I don't think I specifically said it in the description of GFO. If you are in an off year, it means that you're already a part of the GFO program. So if you are a new organization that's never received GFO funding, you cannot be in an off year. New organizations have to go through an intent to apply application due in September of every year, and then are invited to join the GFO program through an on-year application. So just in case that